Hello and welcome to FitPros Live. You are in store for an educational and engaging session. Your instructor is live and able to answer questions that you drop in the chat. And we encourage you to respectfully interact with one another. Check your company's wellbeing portal for more live sessions this week. We are a community of wellness warriors. Now let's slay the day.
Hello and welcome. My name is Meyer Tapia, and I am a wellness coach and educator. My primary or full-time position is at Stanford University, where I run an academic wellness program. And then I do a lot of work like this, consulting with different teams and coaching folks one-on-one in different areas of well-being. I will be sharing a little bit more about myself in a moment, but just kind of want to introduce this topic and where we'll be going over the next 45 minutes, and just give a warm invitation for you to put yourself in the space to receive this as much as you can. I know that when I am logging into things like this in a work setting, it can very much be an opportunity for multitasking and sort of listening and sort of getting things done and seeing this as another check this off the list of things to do. And if that is what you need to do, by all means. And if you are able to maybe silence some notifications, get physically comfortable, that would be my warm invitation, that you could receive this as a space that is yours and get what you need. You'll notice that I titled this Authentic Happiness, not a let's false cheerleader ourselves into some kind of contrived good mood, but more, what does this mean to, in the perfectly imperfect context of our lives, create more space for authentic happiness to arise? So before we get too deep into that, I just wanted to give a moment to introduce myself beyond where I work and what I do for a living, just to have a little bit more context of what brings me here to teach this particular topic. And you see in the photos some more dimensions of my life. I live in Santa Cruz, California, and love to be by the water. I love to run. You see my family, some of the schools I've gotten to teach and study and work at, as well as my own business here. And while all of this is very true and real, it's such an incomplete picture. I imagine any of you who share yourselves in any kind of public forum, Instagram or what have you, there's this sense of, yeah, this is my life. And to say this is my life feels really inauthentic, because it is not like this bright and shiny and happy all the time or ever. Right? These are the highlights. And honestly, what brings me to this work is the stuff that is not in the pictures. And especially as we're having a conversation today around happiness, I think it is particularly important to name some of the stuff that's not in the pictures, like mental health challenges. It's clear from my bio that I teach meditation. I also practice medication. Anxiety has been part of my human experience for as long as I can remember, and Zoloft is a huge part of my comprehensive self-care. Physical health challenges are not in these pictures. While I do love to run by the water, there have been seasons of my life when I not only wasn't running, but was learning how to walk again. I've had some scary experiences in this body that have made my relationship with living in my body challenging. Divorce is not in the photos. And maybe most pertinent to our talk today is the fact that this kitty on the screen, my soulmate kitty, Jack, has been missing for the last 2 weeks. So while this is not 45 minutes of Sarah's life story, I want to name that stuff too, through the lens of happiness, well-being. These are not topics for the bright, shiny moments of our lives. Otherwise, happiness and well-being would be completely elusive to all of us. These are topics for real life as it is, with the full spectrum of our human experience, not just the smiley parts. So with that, let's talk about where we're going here. I want to begin with some definitions as well as myths around what happiness and optimism even are, and why it can feel so hard and unnatural to access these things. And that will fold into a conversation around mindfulness and acceptance. What do these things even mean? And ultimately, the importance of telling ourselves the truth. You may have gathered already that I am not a rainbows and unicorns wellness teacher. This is not a talk on happiness through the lens of let's just focus on the positive and tell ourselves that everything's great. Absolutely not. But I am interested in telling ourselves the truth, not just the big, hard, scary, painful parts of the truth, but the whole truth, which does also include some beauty and neutrality and everything else. So really grounding this time in how to authentically practice happiness in a way that feels real and available to you in your life right now. If we were all on here live together, I would offer this question in the chat and ask for a few words from each of you that would capture how you are right now. And since I can't see your words live, I do want to give you a moment to just check in with yourself and note 2, 3, 4 words that come to mind to just capture not how you are overall, because that's impossible, but in this moment, just right now, as you're arriving here, how are you? If I looked at all of your words in the chat, I imagine I would see some words coming from the same people that said things like tired, grateful, overwhelmed, excited. And often these are phrased in like I'm frustrated and overwhelmed, but I'm really grateful to be here, or I'm so exhausted and I have so much to do, and I'm also really excited about this weekend. There's this stress that can come from trying to wrap it all up nice and neat in like, but it's okay, but I'm okay. And that's an exhausting energy to maintain, that like this is happening and this is happening and this is happening, but I'm great, but it's okay. There's something to be said for the exhale, the and that allows more than one thing to be true. That I can be tired and frustrated and overwhelmed and also really glad to be here. It's true for me that I have a lot of concern about the future my son is inheriting, and I have a lot of hope for this next generation of people. I can be grieving in this area of my life where I'm missing my cat, don't know where he is, if he's ever coming home. I can have this other area of my life where I'm celebrating and feeling so much joy. This can all exist in one person at a time. There's a beautiful piece by Sharon Salzberg. She's a meditation teacher and author. She wrote a book called Loving Kindness, and in that book is a little piece on salt in water that I think illustrates this point so beautifully. She said, if you put a teaspoon in a cup of water, in fact, I have my cup of water here, that water is going to taste really salty. But good luck taking the salt back out of the water. It's going to be a fruitless and frustrating waste of time and energy. What we can do is increase the size of the container of water. Maybe we've got a bathtub or a swimming pool or a lake size full of water. And while technically that teaspoon is still in there, It's not dominating the water. You might not even taste it anymore at a certain point. Yeah, it's there, but there's so much that's not the salt that it's not defining the water anymore. And I just love that illustration of good luck taking the stress out of a life. Fruitless, frustrating waste of time and energy. If we're trying to remove stress from our lives and that's somehow going to make us happier, good luck. I'm not interested in that. What we can do is increase the size of our container such that there's more room to hold, so that, yeah, the stress is in there. Yeah, the grief or the pain is there. And here's the pleasure. Here's the neutrality. Here's the hope and excitement. No one thing is dominating our experience anymore. If our personal container is so small, then yeah, a stressor hits and it's all we can feel. It defines us. But if we can expand our container, and we'll talk about what that means and how, then there's room to hold more than one thing. Secondly, I said good luck taking the stress out of a life, but honestly, I wouldn't want to. And I don't think any of us would want to if we really thought about it. That's like removing the flavor out of a life. Everything meaningful that we do comes with some stress. We stress because we're doing something that we really care about, or there's people involved who we really care about. If you want no stress, then definitely never be in a relationship with anyone you love. Do not get married. Do not live with someone. In fact, never move, never travel. Don't get a job you care about. Never have children. You know, there are so many things that we consider meaningful, often beautiful parts of our life that are definitely challenging and stressful. So it's not about getting rid of or even reducing the stress. It's about how we hold that stress, how we meet that stress, how we engage and interact with that stress. And my last super obvious statement on the screen here is that no feeling is final. And all the words that you might have listed in the chat if we were here live, the things you might be thinking about when I offered that question, how are you? Those are going to shift. I bet they're not the same words you had this morning. They're probably not the same words you'll have at the end of this 45 minutes or tonight. It's so obvious. We hear this over and over. This too shall pass. No feeling is final is actually a line from one of my favorite poems by Rainer Marie Rilke. It's called Go to the Limits of Your Longing. And there's a stanza in that poem that says, let everything happen to you, beauty and terror, just keep going. No feeling is final. And I come back to this when I'm in chosen struggle, like a hard workout or something. Like, this isn't how I felt half an hour ago, not how I'm going to feel in half an hour. This is this moment. Unchosen struggle, like my cat's missing or I'm sick. This isn't how I felt last month. A month from now, I'll feel differently. This is this moment. And it is so obvious, and yet how much of our unhappiness or angst is not even about the direct present moment feeling as it is all our thoughts and feelings about what led to this feeling. All our thoughts and feelings about when this feeling is going to end, if this feeling is going to end, what's this going to mean down the line? Like, this is just this moment, and this moment is going to shift. So if it's a hard moment, can I take my fingers out of it? You know, like loosen the grip, stop the wrestling and the resistance that just sort of feed the beast and keep it around longer than it has to be here. Can I step back and let it make its way through more easily? If it's a beautiful moment, can I be here for it? I might be missing it because my mind is in the hypothetical land of heartache. But if this moment is actually lovely, can I receive it while it's here? Because that's going to shift too. So if these are helpful frameworks for you, please take them. I'm going to talk a little bit about happiness here. We can say it's an emotional experience to be happy, but there's a real range, from just kind of a quiet contentment or satisfaction to a deep sense of fulfillment, to a real intense joy. Some of us hold happiness a little more behind the scenes or under the surface. Some of us are really expressive. There's no one way happiness looks, and it is a range of emotional experience. But here's the thing. We can't force a feeling. And I think try to be happy is the most oxymoronic advice ever. We can't make ourselves feel happy, but we can create the conditions under which authentic happiness might arise. So first off, not only do you not have to be happy all the time, you shouldn't be happy all the time. As a doctor of psychology and mental health practitioner, I will tell you it is not healthy to be happy all the time, because mental health is the ability to respond appropriately to the moment. And instead of being overwhelmed by that response, we come back to baseline, we hold our center. But we have to respond in a human way, which involves a whole range of our experience. The appropriate response to a tragedy is not happiness, it's grief. But the appropriate response to a delicious meal is not missing it because my mind is thinking about work. It's receiving that happy meal or that delicious meal and feeling a happiness or a contentment or fulfillment. So we're not after feeling happy all the time, but we are after feeling happiness where it's appropriate, and maybe even creating conditions under which that happiness might show up more often. So to be optimistic is not telling ourselves lies by fortune telling, like, oh, this is going to be great. Oh, you're going to nail that speech. Oh, you're going to do great on your test today, because guess what? I don't know. It's not dismissing our challenges, like ignoring the hard stuff that's happening in our lives and just focusing on the positive. It is a truth-telling practice to widen the lens of our perspective on our lives to see what is also here right now. Left to our own devices, evolutionarily speaking, we are wired to look for whatever is hard, scary, threatening, painful. That ability to scan for negative is what keeps us alive. Anxiety keeps us alive. If we didn't have that, like, wait, that doesn't look safe, my food tastes funny, I think I smell smoke, none of us would be here if we didn't have any anxiety. So we're not trying to get to a space where we don't notice that stuff anymore. It just means that we have to be practicing how to look for what else is here, because naturally, most of us aren't going to be scanning for that stuff. We might notice an overwhelming, over-the-top, amazing experience, but most of us aren't scanning for, like, what? This coffee is so delicious, or this flower is so beautiful, or let me think about what in my life doesn't suck, what's working well. We think about our bodies and we're aware of the parts that hurt. It's not common for most of us to be thinking about what part of my body is working just fine. We have to practice looking for that stuff too. So expanding our lens isn't a rose-colored glasses, thinking more positively about our lives practice. It's can I have a more accurate perspective of my life that creates the conditions under which that authentic happiness may show up? So we're going to do that little practice together here, a form of it. There are so many ways that we can practice, and I'm going to just guide us through a little exercise here that we'll talk about more after we do it. I'd rather just do it. But for this practice, I'm going to close my eyes. I invite you to do the same. And that's only because when our eyes are closed and we deepen our breath, the brain gets a message that we're safe because we're not scanning for threat and we're not all clenched up. So there must not be any imminent danger. We actually have time to access the part of our brain that can feel happiness. That part of our brain is not available if our system is on alert. So let's put our body in the space, if that does feel safe to you, put your body in the space to let the eyes close and let the belly soften. Notice if you're clenching around your sits bones or tailbone or pubic bone. Just relax those muscles through the seat and allow your body to receive the support that's already here. You might wiggle fingers and toes to release any pressure. Let the shoulders soften away from the ears. The jaw relax, the tongue unstick from the roof of the mouth. Take a nice energizing breath up the spine, maybe lifting through the crown of the head. And then exhaling and softening down the whole body. Taking a couple intentional breaths to really arrive. And from this space, I'm going to invite you to think back on the day to what felt good against your skin. Cozy blankets or sweater, a loved one's embrace, grass under your feet. What felt good to the touch today? And as you think back over your day, what smelled good? What did you breathe in that brought a sense of gratitude or nostalgia or pleasure? What did you enjoy breathing in? What did you taste today that brought you comfort or pleasure or fulfillment? What has tasted good? And what have you listened to today that has made you laugh or smile or feel a sense of wonder or beauty? What has felt good to listen to? And what have you gazed upon? What has felt good to look at that has elicited a sense of wonder or awe or beauty or entertainment? What have you enjoyed looking at today? And just notice what it's like to orient your attention in this way, to actively look for what is also here in this day alongside everything else. And whether feelings are present or not, acknowledge the practice of this as you take a couple more deep breaths. You can let your eyes float open if they've been closed. If we were all here together live, I would ask how you are right now. And there are a couple things I want to say about this practice. Again, it's not about dismissing and denying. It's just, what else has this day held? And every time I do this, I think of things that I would never otherwise think of. And when I name those things, I cement them a little bit more in my awareness, as opposed to completely forgetting that they existed. One of the things I love about this practice is it's really grounded in kind of our five senses, right? Our bodies, our tangible experience. And while not all of us may have access to all five senses all the time, or there may be one that we're missing entirely, running through this practice for most of us is going to bring up at least something that we can tangibly connect to that has been a source of beauty or pleasure or laughter or happiness or just quiet contentment. And that's helpful to grab hold of as also part of our human experience. I like to do this as, what we just did, where I really close my eyes and pause and reflect through. And I also love to do this on the go. This is a really powerful practice if you're in a spiral of negativity, which I can do, having much experience with anxiety, to use the five senses as a way to snap back into this present moment. Like, even right now, what can I see that's beautiful? Or what can I listen for or listen to? Just kind of run through what have I tasted today that's been good? What have I touched today? To really snap out of wherever our minds might be spinning out and come back to our bodies. We don't have to stop what we're doing and close our eyes and do a formal meditation. We can just, on the go, think through those five senses. This is a lovely practice to do while we're falling asleep, because how many of us lay in bed ruminating about the worst part of our day or worrying about the next day? How lovely to give our minds something else to do by reflecting on our day through the five senses. I have what I lovingly call my stupid little happiness journal that I completely rolled my eyes at the first few times I heard about it. And I was convinced to give it a shot. But ultimately, I start every morning with my own personal meditation practice. And so I've just added this in of naming one thing from the day before that brought me any kind of happiness. And when I look back over the pages from the last several months, I see so many things I would have completely forgot happened, because they're these tiny little moments. But by naming them and then coming back to them, I'm cementing those experiences also part of my life, which shifts the way I think about my life, which enables me to access that authentic state of happiness more naturally and more frequently. So lots of ways to do this, but just kind of wanted to give ourselves a little taste there. And what we were also doing was a practice of mindfulness. When we checked in at the beginning with how we were in that moment, and when we intentionally thought about our experience in this day, we're practicing mindfulness, which is, yes, it's being present, but it's being present in an open way, not a critical way. A lot of us are really good at, like, I'm right here in this moment and I know what I don't like about it. That's more critical awareness. But mindfulness is, even if the word kind feels a little much, think of it as neutral awareness, as in, I'm noticing this moment and I'm not deciding whether it's good, bad, right, wrong, I like it, I don't like it. I'm just acknowledging what's here. I'm seeing it clearly. I'm open to what it might be. I haven't already decided what it is. So it's a less judgmental attention to the present moment. And when we pay attention in this way, it's easier to notice these potential sources of happiness alongside whatever's here. If I'm really present right now, I can see this beautiful plant on my desk that I don't otherwise even notice, because all I can see is my work. So this isn't a little back pocket tip to whip out. This is a way of being in the world that allows us to see our lives in a more accurate way. We have to be able to tell ourselves the truth about our life. Just as much as we don't want to get into this false positivity of convincing ourselves everything's great, we also don't want to be in the space where we're only thinking about the hardest parts of our life. Acceptance is the art of saying what's true is true. Now, it's a tricky word because it can imply accepting, like, well, this just is what it is, and so I guess it's fine, or agreeing with it, or condoning it, or saying it's okay. There are things in life that are absolutely unacceptable. So the word might be a little weird, but essentially what we're talking about right now is the ability to say what's true is true. And I'm not going to spend all of my energy trying to convince myself otherwise. I'm going to name where I am because I have to be able to do that if I want to go somewhere else. One of my teachers uses the Uber driver analogy a lot, which I love. She said, if you want to get an Uber, you have to tell them where you are right now or they can't pick you up. Even if you're really embarrassed about where you are or mad about where you are, you have to tell the truth about where you are or they can't pick you up and take you to the place you want to go. If we want to experience authentic happiness, and maybe this moment is a really hard moment, saying to ourselves, well, I guess it's okay, I'll just think about the good things in life, like that's not going to get us there. That's just going to spiral into guilt over feeling not happy. But to say this moment is hard, okay, and I want to get over here, so now I can move in that direction. I'm going to put a few prompts up here, and I apologize for the one animation that didn't seem to stick. A few prompts here to invite authentic happiness. We can't force it, but we can create space for it. We can enhance that container, right? And we can invite it to land. Here's one that I love. What would make my past self proud and my future self grateful? I appreciate this because it distinguishes between self-indulgence and true care for ourselves. And the self-indulgence may or may not lead to happiness, but the true care for ourselves eventually does. What I'm saying is, like, sometimes we think, all right, well, this has been so hard, I deserve to just skip work or hide under the covers and eat a bunch of chocolate and watch Netflix. There is a time and a place for that. And yet that's not the answer to this question usually, right? That's more the indulgence. The true care for myself is not going to say past me is going to be so proud that I skipped work and ate chocolate all day, or future me is going to be so grateful I did that. Maybe, but most of the time it's past me would be so proud to see that I'm giving myself some breaths in the morning before diving into my phone and my work. Future me would be so grateful that I made the phone call, I wrote the report, I put gas in the tank on the way home from work so I didn't have to do it the next morning, right? These are the not so sexy, but truly caring acts that we do for ourselves that create more space for happiness because we aren't overwhelmed by cleaning up yesterday's mistakes, right? Also, simply asking without bringing anything else into our lives, kind of the practice that we did earlier, but maybe phrased in a different way. What's already bringing me comfort or pleasure or delight or peace, without trying to tack more onto my to-do list? Can I simply be more present for these things? So the little meditation we did was a practice of reflecting back on that stuff. And what if in the moment that I was sipping the delicious coffee, I actually tasted it? What if in the moment that I was in the shower with this warm water and soap that smelled good, I was feeling it and I was smelling it? What if when I heard that child laughing or that beautiful piece of music, I just took a minute to really take it in? That's the kind of stuff that massively amplifies our capacity for happiness. That it's not adding time, it's adding presence to our lives. And then the ability, well, we were talking about that mindfulness to, in this moment, if I'm not at ease or happy or feeling safety or any kind of energy or freedom, what would bring me that right now? This isn't a grand daydream of, well, if I could just, skip out and go to work, go to the beach, or if I could just take that trip to Bali. I mean, hey, if you can swing it, do it. But just like a breath, or I'm going to make myself something delicious. I'm just going to stand outside and feel the sun on my face for a minute. It seems so trite. And yet these things can drastically change our state and allow for the happiness that can feel so elusive. And we all know it's not hard to take one breath. It's not hard to stand outside for 1 minute and feel the sun. What's hard is remembering to do it. What's hard is the energy required to make a different choice. I'm never going to do those things if I never do those things. What we practice grows stronger. We learn the thing by doing the thing. If I've done anxiety my whole life, I'm so good at it, I don't even have to think about it anymore. If I've criticized people my whole life or myself, I'm so good at, I don't even have to think about it anymore. This is the science of habit. Literally, we're developing those neural pathways for anxiety or criticism. That means that we can create new neural pathways by practicing different things. So it's not about, oh, it's so hard to find a minute. It's about, it's so hard to remember to take a minute because I never take a minute. So again, with the not so sexy but very practical steps, what's the glaring sign you're going to put in front of your face that reminds you we're doing this differently now? We're taking a breath before we grab our phone in the morning. We're going to really sip and savor that first drink of coffee before we jump into everything else. We're going to look for sources of joy or pleasure through the 5 senses. What do you want to practice? Or maybe think about it as, what do you want to be stronger at? Because whatever you're strong at now, you've practiced it. So naming for yourself, what do I want to be stronger at? And what does it look like to practice that? Thinking in really concrete ways about, is it a Post-it note? Is it a picture that makes you think of the thing? You know how you put a picture in your house and then you stop seeing it after a while unless you move that picture, and then suddenly you're like, oh, I love that. We have to put like some kind of cue in our face that shakes things up enough to remember, oh, this is different. On that note, and the last thing that I want to speak to here as we think about developing a kind of happiness practice, or if you still cringe at the word like I did for years, sometimes still do, a accuracy practice, as in, I don't want to think about only negative or only positive. I want to see my life clearly. So that's going to come through this breath or this mindful shower or the, whatever you pick. Of all the behavior change classes I've taught over the years, all the clients I've worked with who wanted to practice something different, the number one difference between people who actually do it and don't is their language, how they talk about it. If it's, I really should meditate more, I know I need to be more optimistic, be more positive, I know I should really take a breath before I check my phone. The shoulds, the supposed tos, the have tos are victim words. They imply there's some other hypothetical voice telling you what to do, what not to do. If you're a rebel like me, the minute you hear that you should do something, it's the last thing you want to do, even if it was your idea. If you're more of a pleaser, then you'll do the thing you've been told you should do so that you get your gold star, but eventually realize no one's looking, no one cares, This wasn't even my idea. I don't even want to do this. It doesn't last. It lasts when we acknowledge I don't have to do this. And so if I'm feeling like it would be helpful for whatever reason, I have to own the fact that I'm choosing to do this. I'm choosing to do a 5 senses meditation because I want to be a happier person. I'm choosing to take a breath before I grab my phone because I want to be a calmer person. What I love about this framework is we don't have to lie to ourselves. We don't have to convince ourselves that we're oh so excited about meditation or oh so excited about taking our little mindful walk. We don't have to pretend that I love my stupid little happiness journal. It can be the both and of I don't feel like doing this and I'm choosing to do this because I do genuinely want to be a happier person, or I do genuinely want to see my life more clearly. Our mood, our preferences are irrelevant as long as we can acknowledge I'm choosing this for a reason that matters to me. So if that is a helpful framework for you, please take it. And I will close by leaving this on the screen for a moment so you can follow up with me if you so desire. My website and business is just my name, sarahmeyertapia.com. And that's where you can get information about coaching with me or some other resources. And many of those resources are free. I have some written resources and essays there. I host a live meditation on Zoom 3 times a week that is also free. There are downloadable meditations for free. So if that would be a helpful resource to you, you have a warm invitation to check it out, to reach out. And thank you. Thank you for your presence here and your investments in your own happiness, as that will bless everyone around you. And I'm wishing you well. Take care.